Welcome to the Living the Dream podcast with Curveball. If you believe, you can achieve. Welcome to the Living the Dream with Curveball podcast, a show where I interview guests that teach, motivate, and inspire. Today, we're going to be talking to creative and innovative leader, Anthony Carter. Anthony basically focuses on writing, podcasting, and documentary filmmaking. When he writes about Black male mental health and relationships and money. So he's really successful. We're going to be talking to him about everything that he's up to in his films and books and stuff like that and what he's got coming up. So Anthony, thank you so much for joining me today.
No problem. Thank you for having me. Good evening. How are you?
Doing well. Why don't you start off by telling everybody a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Anthony Carter. I am a Detroiter, raised in Motown. My parents moved back to Detroit when I was about a year old, so I grew up in Detroit. Went to college in the South, went to Fisk University in Nashville, Tennessee. Majored in English. What have I been doing since then? That was many, many years ago. Since then, I've lived all over the world. I've lived in Japan. I've lived in New York City. I've lived in a brief stint in Atlanta. I've toured. I've been in Beauty and the Beast. I've done a lot of writing. What I'm focusing on these days is saving Black men. And what I mean by that is helping them eliminate hypertension without medication and the use and the addition of a whole food plant-based diet.
Yeah, since you mentioned that plant-based diet, go ahead and explain to the listeners your journey
Great.
And why you got started on that.
Sure. So I'm a vegan. I'm a whole food plant-based vegan. I've been that now for I would say I started 4 years ago, right before the pandemic. And I was kind of a junk food vegan initially. I was eating a lot of junk because there's a lot of junk you can eat that's vegan, like Fritos and Oreos. That's vegan. And people don't know it. But I was eating a lot of stuff that was not necessarily that great for me. Then I started working with a wonderful coach by the name of Lisa A. Smith, who runs the Black Health Academy. And I did a 12-week restart with her, right? And it was 12 weeks. It was no oil, no salt, no sugar, and a lot of whole foods. And so, we had to try different foods. Every week we were trying a different, I didn't even know I liked turnips, right? So that was one of the things I love now that I didn't know then. But I started eating things differently. I started, and it turned my health around because I had had a health scare. I had been given the diagnosis. The doctor never said I had hypertension. She just said my blood pressure was extremely high. She had given me the blood pressure test 4 times in a row, and she was like, "I can't believe you haven't had a stroke. Like, I can't believe nothing's happened to you." So they immediately put me on pills, and I immediately tried to get off the pills. It took me 2 years to get off of them. And I got off of them by using a whole food plant-based diet and a really great, caring, compassionate community that I surrounded myself.
So you say we cannot moderate ourselves to a healthy life. Why do you feel that way?
Oh, no. You brought up the dreaded M word. You you cannot. This is why, moderation is typically how we get in these situations, right? So for example, let me tell you a little bit about what I used to, before I committed to being healthy and turning my life. I used to eat the pizza and the hot wings and the chili cheese fries and all that. Now, when I went to have my pressure checked, I went in because I wasn't feeling well. And when I went to have my pressure checked, it was about 145, 140 something over 90, which is high, right? That's super high. Now, that didn't just happen with one meal or one French fry. That was years of eating that kind of stuff, right? So it was years of me, quote unquote, moderating. Like, okay, I'll just have a few French fries. Or I'll order I'll go to Wingstop and I'll get the 6-piece, but maybe I'll only eat 4, right? So I moderated myself into being unhealthy. And you cannot do this. I cannot do the same thing I did that got me unhealthy. I can't turn around and do the same thing and then expect to turn it around. That doesn't work. So no, we're not about the moderation. We're about, abstinence and giving up the junk.
So one more question on that jump. Then I want to get into your amazing career and all that good stuff.
Hmm.
Um, I know that a lot of people talk about the jump, like you say, that is put into the food and stuff. And I know you have a plant-based diet. Do you think if that junk was removed from the foods that it would be okay, or do you just feel like it's a no-go?
When you
If
say removed how, what do you mean?
like all the toxins and stuff, you got toxins in the soil, you got the the different things that are put in foods, like the antibiotics and different things that
Right.
are
Well,
put in.
all that stuff is put into the food so that you get addicted and you like it, right? There's a reason people like salty, greasy foods. So if you take that out, that would definitely change your diet. And and it'll change your diet and it'll also change your palate, right? So for example, I used to be really big on sweets. I grew up with a grandmother from Texas, and she, was always pound cakes and cobblers and cookies and that kind of stuff going on. So I got it honest, when I started with this journey with the no salt, no oil, no sugar, and I took the sugar out of my diet, after not having sugar in my diet for, I would say, 14 days. It usually takes 14 to 15 days. My palate changed. So I didn't, you crave what you consume, and I didn't want that. So I think when you start talking about taking the things out of the food, my thing is, rather than try to find stuff that has stuff taken out, why not just go for the good food anyway, right? Why not go for the fruits and the vegetables? I was eating, when I lived in California, I had a big mango tree in the front of my house, right? I had two pomegranate trees. So I would pluck mangoes right off the tree in my front yard. And they were just as sweet and just as satisfying as any cookies. So yeah, you can do it. But you tried to get me on that one. I got you, Curtis.
Yeah, I was just kind of curious on that and great perspective. Let's jump into your career, your documentaries. Tell us about your documentaries, and you've also been up for semifinalists. So kind of take us through that and how we can check them out.
Okay, so I'm gonna I'll take you back to I guess the beginning, which is about 30 years ago. I started off as an actor, right? As a singer, then an actor, then a singing actor, and then telling jokes and being on stage. And then I moved to New York, and the goal was just to stay on stage as much as humanly possible. And I kept writing and I kept performing. And then at some point, during the pandemic, I remember sitting on my couch and thinking, what do I want to do next? Like, what, for me, the pandemic, now I don't know, I can't speak for everybody, but for me, the pandemic, COVID was a huge reset for me, right? When COVID hit, I looked at my health, I looked at who I wanted to be in the world and what I wanted to have. And I started asking myself some hard questions like, well, do you want to live this way? And I started asking myself questions like, well, what dreams have I put on the back burner that, okay, well, this is the apocalypse and the end of the world. I don't want to, you know, I don't want them to put me in the pine box without having gone after certain things, right? So one of the things I wanted to go after was documentary filmmaking. I'd always loved documentaries. I'd watched a ton of them. I'd met people who made documentary films. I kept saying, one day I'm going to do that. One day, one day, one day. The pandemic hit in March, and I was in California. And then I would say in August or beginning of September, I was sitting on my couch one Friday, and I said, you know what? I want to dedicate my life to making documentaries. Curtis, I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know who I was talking to. I was just on my couch one day in Long Beach, California, one Friday. I put that out in the universe. And I swear, Monday, 3 days later, I got a text from a friend of mine who used to be he was a coworker of mine. She'd gone to USC, University of Southern California. He sent me this text with a flyer, and the flyer said, do you want to learn filmmaking, documentary filmmaking? And on the flyer, the class was called Documentary Filmmaking for Social Change. So it was a class that was designed for people to make who had been in social work, who wanted to move into using film as another medium to heal, to move the community forward, to get people to have great lives, right? This came in on Monday to my phone. I went to the information meeting 2 days later on Wednesday. Before we even went to potty break, I gave him my credit card. I was like, I'm in, I'm doing this. Didn't know what I was signing up for. Got into it, started learning an incredible amount of information about documentaries and how you tell stories and how do you frame shots and how do you do, how do you set moves? And out of that, I ended up doing 3 documentaries. So I did one on Black men, and there was a lot of stuff in that one about from Bell Hooks and James Baldwin and Paul Robeson and Jimi Hendrix. Like they were all in this short, like quirky experimental film. The big one that really took off was the one you're talking about, which is Ask the Old Guy. And it's all about my journey going from having this high blood pressure and this awful diagnosis to turning it around. And then in turning it around, me going on to Twitter and meeting all these wonderful Black vegans, these people who I didn't know. I just met people on Twitter and I said, hey, I have a podcast and I'm doing a movie. Can you do both? And everybody I talked to said, absolutely. So then I was able to shoot different interviews with them from the podcast. We shot this film. We shot the film using Zoom, my kitchen, and the garden in front of my house. And that was back in the end of 2020, the first half of 2021. And it sat on YouTube for a while and kind of languished. And then all of a sudden, last September of 23, it just exploded. So it's gone from being like, kind of like out there another film to now I'm up to 13 awards for this film. I just got one today from Tokyo. I got an email today from Tokyo saying, congratulations, you're an official selection in the Tokyo Film Festival. So it keeps going and going.
Man, that is sweet. Congratulations on that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Tell us about the Counter Narrative Project. Tell us what that's all about and why you decided to work on that and what you did with it.
Counter Narrative Project is a group of really wonderful Black gay men, and it's all about using all kinds of content, marketing, and presentation to tell our stories, right? A lot of times people I know as a Black gay man, people will there are many people who've told my story, tried to tell it, are trying to tell it now, and they get it all wrong. I don't know where they're pulling this information from, but it goes out into the world. And as you know, with the internet and everything else, something goes out into the world, you don't have any control over, right? And now with the internet, everybody can have a platform. So with the Counter Narrative Project, it's all about let's tell our own stories. Let's create some narratives that we orchestrate, that we tell from beginning to end, that we tell from soup to nuts, that we tell from our story, from our standpoint. We don't need anybody to tell our story. We can tell our own story. So with them, I did a podcast for I think it's Black World AIDS Day. I think it's in February. I did a podcast for them on that topic. I'm in a class now that's all about being a content creator. So learning about editing and using TikTok and social media to get the message out. So yeah, they're a great group.
Okay, everybody, it's Michael E. Cullen II.
And I'm Sesame and Carta from the All Too Real 2 podcast. We're passionate about movies, TV, and pretty much all things pop culture.
Dive into the chaos of failed sitcoms, direct-to-video sequels, and the quirky realms of cinema and TV.
Join us every Thursday for your dose of All Too Real 2 entertainment.
We'll guide you through debates like whether Howard the Duck qualifies as a superhero.
Ponder if Larry the Cable Guy could be the new Rock or Schwarzenegger.
Discover if some shows and movies should have stayed in the cutting room.
Ever heard of a sitcom featuring that dictator with the funny mustache? Well, we watched it.
We're dedicated to unraveling the peculiarities of pop culture, sometimes with awesome guests.
So, if you're into the eccentric world of pop culture,
listen and subscribe to All Too Real 2.
Available wherever you find podcasts
and on Age of Radio.
Okay, well, you've also self-published 7 books. So tell us what you write about and how you got into that.
Okay, I got into that the same I got into everything. I just made a decision. This is what I'm going to do, right? The books came about because I have a website and I have a wonderful partner in crime who lives in England who manages it for me. He set it up for me. When we first met, we met in February or March of 2011. I was just writing and putting stuff out there. I wrote something. It ended up on Elton John's website in England. He saw it. He reached out to me. He said, hey, we should do some stuff together. I was like, sure, why not? So I started publishing stuff. I started publishing blog posts. Then he said, you need a website. I said, sure, why not? So we did that. Then after I got the website up and running, he said, you really should be putting this stuff into books. Like you really should be making collections of, essay collections and putting stuff. So I was like, you think so? So he said, yeah. So we published the first one, self-published. It was 21 essays, and it's all about Unfettered Mind, the importance of Black male mental health. And it was all about all the things that I've learned and seen and experienced and watched my friends experience in terms of the fight, the ongoing commitment to be mentally healthy in a world that I feel many times does not want us to be mentally healthy. And what I would do is that was the first book. And then I put out another book about, reinventing yourself for the 21st century in terms of a job market. That's called Strong Stuff. We just kept, I kept writing and doing essays, and every so often I'd get an email from him. He would say, you know what, time for another book, right? And we put together the cover, we did the table of contents, and we would publish them. And we published them through, I think the first time we published them through Lulu. And then the other ones we just kind of published ourselves. You can get them on the website. And we're giving them away for free, but now we're charging for them.
Okay, speaking of the job market, you do a lot with the youth, with the youth readiness workshops. So kind of tell the listeners about those, and, are they virtual or local?
They are both. It's a hybrid. I love working with young people. I've worked with a lot of them. I do a lot of things with young people around getting job ready, right? And what does that look like? And what does it look like now? A lot of the things that I'm teaching young people and coaching them through are things that I don't know your age, but I know I'm 56. So they're things that I learned from the time I could walk, in terms of presentation. How do you talk to older people? How do you address people? That we've lost a lot of that. So a lot of my time is spent around coaching, okay, this is how you approach somebody in an appropriate manner. This is how you follow up. This is how you stand out, so that if you go in a situation and they may have seen 300 people, why are they going to call you back, right? So I do a lot of things, tips and tricks around, okay, this is how you make that happen. This is how you follow up. This is what you do if, they ghost you. And you want to find out what's going on, but you still want to keep it professional, right? So I do a lot of that with young people. I do a lot of things around financial literacy, a lot of things around budgeting, a lot of things around short and long-term goal planning.
Okay. Well, you're also on a mission to get 100,000 Black men to commit to their health. Tell us about that mission.
Okay, that mission is all a part of, I mentioned the film earlier, Ask the Old Guy. I've started a movement, and I'm on Facebook Live. I do a Facebook Live every Tuesday. And at Facebook Live, the title of it is That Plant Life, THATPLANT, Life, LIFE. And it's all about me supporting Black men 40 to 60 who are committed to combating hypertension without the use of medication and the addition of a whole food plant-based lifestyle. That was a long-winded way of saying that my goal is to get 100,000 of us off the medication and get 100,000 of us Black men healthy and productive.
What's your
And
number
being able
right
to
now?
write
Where you at right now?
what'd you say?
Where you at right now?
In
What's
terms
your
of
number?
numbers?
Yeah.
I don't have my numbers yet. I don't know. That's why I gotta figure that out. I don't have my numbers as of yet. That's the vision. That's where I'm headed, and that's where I'm heading. But I got no numbers for you right now. I wish I did. I wish I did.
Absolutely. Well, tell us about any upcoming projects that you're working on that listeners need to be aware of, because you got a lot of irons in the fire.
Upcoming projects. I'm going to be doing a workshop, and I will. If your listeners want to contact me, they can definitely reach out to me on Twitter at Anthony L. Carter. They can reach out to me on Facebook. My name is Anthony Carter. It's on Facebook. I do a Facebook Live every Tuesday. What's coming up? I'm going to do a 2-hour workshop, towards this 100,000 legion of Black men. I'm going to be doing a 2-hour workshop to introduce Black men to the plant-based lifestyle, introduce them to how they can use that to eliminate stress, chronic stress, how they can use that to get their blood pressure, eliminate high blood pressure. We're not trying to manage it. So the workshop is how we're going to eliminate certain things, not manage situations we don't want to manage and we don't want to have. So that's what the workshop is about.
Okay, you mentioned your website. That was going to be my next question. You threw out your contact on social media. Throw out your website.
Okay, the website is anthony-carter.com, ANTHONY-Carter, CARTER.com. I've got books, I've got podcasts on there, I've got essays. There's tons of stuff on there because it's 13 years old, so it's tons of things on there.
Shout out to JC and Podbreed. I'm really glad he hooked us up. You are doing a lot, and it's amazing. So close us out with some final thoughts. Maybe if there was something that I forgot to touch on that you would like to talk about, or any final thoughts you have for the listeners.
I think we touched on a lot in a very quick amount of time. I just want to remind people that they are in charge of their own lives, right? We get to decide, like you're talking about the counter narrative project. So all the things that I do, the writing, the speaking, the blogging, the podcast, making movies, everything is, for me, is about reminding us that we're in charge of our own lives. We get to dictate how we live, how well we live, who we become, what we do, how we show up in the world. So don't let anybody tell you you can't do that or why you're doing that. So my suggestion would be keep fighting, keep standing up for yourself. Check out my work. If you're interested in working with me, reach out. You can reach out to me on the mediums that I mentioned. I'm always looking for a partner in crime, a place to speak, a place to show my film, which is on YouTube, by the way. Ask the Old God by Anthony Carter is on YouTube. So your listeners can check that out.
Absolutely. Definitely go check that out. And yeah, I try to keep the shows as short, as sweet as I can, so people don't have an excuse to turn it off, but get as much information as they can so they can learn, be motivated, and inspired. Anthony-Carter.com. Y'all go check him out. Check out his live Facebook. Check out his YouTube. I'm definitely going to be reaching out to him. I got a little short documentary up there collaborating with somebody as my cybersecurity job, but I want to try to get a documentary about my life. But listeners, absolutely, listeners, if you have any guest or suggestion topics, cjackson102@cox.net is the place to send them. Jump on your favorite podcast app, hit that follow button, leave us a review. Thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting the show. And Anthony, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I'll talk to you soon.
For more information on the Living the Dream podcast, visit www.djcurveball.com. Until next time, stay focused on living the dream.